As promised, chat room and podcasters, Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports on a Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And the 5 o'clock deadline passed, and I've not heard that there's no baseball, so I will take for granted that there still is baseball and that it will still start July 24th and that we have a season, and hip, hip, hooray. How about that? Win one for the team and all that good stuff. But now we can get down to business and we can talk about some rule changes and how the rule changes will affect fantasy baseball this year. Oh, yeah. So there's a DH in the NL. And with that, traditionalists won't like it. I got that. But it will open up how the National League fantasy teams are put together and how it all works. So let's take a look at some of the teams, okay? Let's take a look first at the New York Mets. I like to start there with the Mets, okay? Because the DH could well be the satisfying answer for what happens to Yoenis Cespedes. Remember Yoenis Cespedes? He used to be a really good ball player. Remember that? And then he decided he would go into, pig wrestling? And so he gets hurt and he can't play. It's been a couple of years now since Yoenis Cespedes has taken a bat in the major leagues. And now he's back. Missed all of 19, most of 18, half of 17. He was taking live BP in spring and March. He was running, last we heard. He was having difficulty turning, last we heard, while running. But if he can't, then the Mets have another DH in waiting, Dominique Smith. You remember last year, we come into spring training and there's this big competition, right? Who's going to be the Mets' first baseman? Is it going to be Dominique Smith? Is it going to be Pete Alonso? And it turned out to be Pete Alonso. And I'm just reading now on my phone, breaking news that the players have approved the proposal. So it is official. There will be baseball in 2020. Yeah. Just came on my phone. They just approved it. So there you go. Getting back to the Mets and Dominique Smith. If Dom Smith, Yoenis Cespedes, and do you have some kind of shared situation there? Maybe Dom Smith DHs against right-handers. Maybe Yoenis DHs against lefties. If that's the case, then Dominique Smith is the big winner with the Metropolitans. We'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out. I personally think Yoenis Cespedes is intriguing for the Mets. I really do. I love the fact that Cespedes can hit because we know that's what he does best. He is a slugger extraordinaire when he's healthy. When he last played, he was one of the most feared batters in the National League. The Mets have not gotten much on that return now, have they? Maybe this year they will. And you think about it. With the Mets, with Robbie Cano back at second, he might get some DH at bats. They've got players. The McNeil kid can play all over. So they could give Robbie Cano a few days off, so to speak. Half a day off, not in the field. But I think Yoenis Cespedes is the most intriguing of all. Because, face it, Cano's going to play. All right, Cano's going to play. So let's move along. How about the Reds? You know, they add Nick Castellanos. They add Shogo Akiyama. They add Jesse Winker. They have Aristas Aquino. They have Nick Senzel. They have a lot of players, not that great a fielder, but good bats. And I tell you, Jesse Winker, to me, is a big winner for Cincinnati. Jesse Winker, a left-handed bat, will get the strong side of a platoon. He's a good hitter. He's a sorry fielder. But he's going to get, the bat's going to play. And against right-handed pitching, I look for Jesse Winker to get a lot of play. Now against lefties, will they have Nick Castellanos DHing some? We know he's not the greatest of fielders, but we know that bat in that ballpark is going to be something special to be sure. So I look for Castellanos to get some DH time, which means if he's DHing, somebody else gets to play more. Will that be Nick Senzel full time? Will that be Arestes Aquino? Will that be Shogo? The Reds have a lot of pieces to put into the puzzle. The Nationals, they bring back Ryan Zimmerman one more year. How old is he now? 43? They bring back World Series most valuable player Howie Kendrick. They also sign Eric Thames, and they sign Starlin Castro. Now, Castro is going to be the everyday second base, and manager Davey Martinez said in spring training he plans to bat Castro third in the lineup. Wow. And that bat can still hit. So I can see Thames being in some kind of platoon with Zimmerman, and Zimmerman and Kendrick sharing some DH. I think the DH with 60 games is a perfect fit for Howie Kendrick. I love Howie Kendrick now with the DH. I think he plays the majority of the games. We shall see. But I think for fantasy, Howie Kendrick's value may have jumped as much as anyone with the official announcement that the National League is going to be using the designated hitter. Now, we go to Milwaukee. The Brewers, they add Avisail Garcia to a already full outfield. And Avisail Garcia appears to be the everyday right fielder to me in Milwaukee. And that bat can hit in that stadium. Don't undersell Avisail Garcia. You get to the last rounds and he's still there. He's going to play and he can hit and he can even steal you a few bases. So Garcia plays, which would have meant move Braun to first base. But the Brewers go out in the offseason and they add one Justin Smoak. Really good glove, switch hitter. So now Smoak is at first base and you've got Ryan Braun sitting there, but now we have a DH. Braun had started working at first base. He can still play some outfield. But with the injuries he's had, and he had over 20 homers last year and didn't play full time. Don't you really think, Braun, a former MVP, don't you think over 60 games he can pull it together and put up some really good numbers? I liken the DH factor that I talked about being so favorable for Howie Kendrick. I liken it almost as favorable, if not as much, for Ryan Braun. Atlanta. Now, not necessarily who you might think. I think they've had Johan Camargo playing third. They've had Austin Riley playing third. Both players were having a good spring. Now it opens up that one of them can DH. What if it doesn't work? Well, you've got another player. Remember the kid used to play for the Reds. Now he's with the Braves. Spent some time in the minor leagues. His name is Adam Duvall. Not that far away from a 30 home run season is Adam Duvall. And you don't hear many people, short of folks like me, talking about Adam Duvall. Now, I don't think from everything I read and follow with Atlanta, that he is their number one DH option. I do know, though, remember, Austin Riley last year busts on the scene. I mean, for the first month, he was a fantasy darling, right? And if you've ever seen a Jekyll and Hyde, it was Austin Riley. Yes, Chappie, it's me. Jekyll and Hyde, Austin Riley, the little girl with the curl, when he was good, he was really good. And when he was bad, he was oh so bad. So bad that the Braves set him on the bench after such a great start to the season. So I think Riley has the opportunity to start the year as the DH third baseman with Camargo. But I tell you what, with only 60 games, the leash is really short. The Braves cannot allow an Austin Riley to struggle very long. Hence, that's why I say keep your eyes peeled on a sleeper like Adam Duvall. A lot of power, probably a platoon situation, and of course Duvall would be on the short side of that platoon. But irregardless, power bat that can still hit. Write it down. Keep your eye on them. See what they do in this 3-week spring training. And that's another thing I think is interesting. There's been talk for a long time that spring training is too long. And now we're going to have a 3-weeker. If this works out, look for spring training time to decrease. Look for it. Now, I think the pitchers may need it, but maybe they can do something with the pitchers. But this 3-week spring training is one of the experiments. The other experiment, as I take an aside for a moment, Adam Duvall is definitely on my list. Definitely. Don't you think? You guys that are listening, don't you think Adam Duvall is worthy of a late round look? Now with the DH. He's a player I would not have considered at all in March, February. But with the DH, and Atlanta seems to like him. Getting back to rule changes. I'm going back and forth. Hang with me. One of the rule changes. Extra innings. We'll go to what the minor leagues did. How many of you like that? You put a man on second to start the inning. That's what's going to happen this year. It's a new rule. Why? Well, first of all, you're trying to cut down on 15, 17 inning games. And if you put a guy on second base to start the 10th inning, that game's going to end pretty soon. And at least that's my opinion. So we're going to see how that works. Along with the shortened spring training, along with the DH, which is what we're spending our time on now. And with knowing that Phil Chaplin is listening, let's get right into the Chicago Cubs. Now, I've had conversations about the Cubs before, and the big word here is Schwarber. That's a big word in more ways than one. Schwarber is the primary beneficiary of the DH in Chicago. But remember, if Schwarber is the DH, then someone is now playing left field. Could another beneficiary be their catcher? Or their backup catcher, Victor Caratini? Or utility man, David Bote? I mean, you think about the Cubs and we automatically, I at least think of Schwarber. But there are other players now who can benefit from that DH role in Chicago. Now, there is a guy that the Cubs picked up in the offseason. Of course, they lost Addison Russell. Not going there. But they went out in the offseason and sign a free agent. a free agent who has been hurt quite a bit, but now has a chance to play.